Greetings and welcome back to Switch to Linux. We have been having a few days, and it wasn't a few days off, okay? Just there was some miscommunication there. I wasn't taking a break. I was actually doing a lot on the back end of the channel. So if you are unaware of what I've been doing, I put together some social. So if you want to follow me, Twitter, MeWe, Reddit, Minds, Gab, and I also have a Mastodon. It's just harder to figure out where you are in Mastodon world. So those are linked to other places as well. Also, I'm using the YouTube community tab a little bit more, and then new end screen, and just a few things in the back end process, like making that cool little, where's it at, social thing that was there and disappeared. So we are back, and we have the supporters on. Once again, if you sign up on patreon.com or Think Life Media, you can jump in on these streams here. And before we get super started with the discussion, I have some shameless promoting to do. I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit of that. So hello, everybody. How you guys doing?
We're doing okay. I'm doing okay.
Very good, very good. And Vince, I did get your email. I meant to shoot you an email back yesterday. I'll talk to it after we go off air. But for everybody else, a little bit of shameless promoting. Of course, I did release my last Christian book called I Am Not Amused. I have 2 separate giveaways going for this book if you are interested in picking up a copy of this. One of these requires an Amazon account in United States. Sorry, it's just nothing else I can do about it, but I'm giving away 2 copies, and that's the paperback copies. Just go on over there to Amazon and see if you are in it. I hate the way Amazon does their giveaways. I really hate it. But that's the best I can do. The other one is if you are on Goodreads, I'm giving away 100 ebooks through the Kindle's platform. That one is over there. And if you are connected on Goodreads, go ahead and connect with me over there. That's kind of stays up to date with all my writing and authorship stuff. So that's kind of the promotions. And of course, we will be doing a video tonight on the other channel, if I can get the link for that one, where we talk about this high school student in Ohio that got suspended for posting Bible verses in the school. We're going to talk about that, so that'll be interesting. So how are you guys doing?
I'm fine. It's nice to be back after a while. I've been traveling.
Yeah, world traveler. All right. Ben, how's it going? You jumped on right when we started.
Pretty good. Yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. Dan, what's going on in your world?
Not a whole lot, really. I've been off work due to medical issues.
Oh, boredom.
I did my taxes yesterday. I mean,
so
it's a rough go, but at least I'm getting a ton of money back.
Lucky. You can, if you want, you can, like, I'll get you the numbers. You can pay mine if you want.
It appears that there is a huge difference in the different type of, or the different brand of software you use for your taxes. For years, I've been using the H&R Block stuff, and I've had to struggle with that because it's not really an easy software to really use for your taxes.
Yeah.
This year, I switched to TurboTax, even though it costs $10 more. And at the back end of it, they try and sell you a bunch of junk. But it was much easier to use and ask more of the right questions.
Nice. I know I stopped using H&R Block when it was apparent to me that I knew more about my taxes than the person doing my taxes knew about my taxes, and that's about the time I stopped using H&R Block.
What tax software even runs on Linux?
TurboTax runs in a browser.
Oh, okay. TurboTax.
I used a virtual machine.
I have this thing
Windows...
called the CPA because of all these businesses. I ain't touching my taxes. Brian, you're probably in the same boat, right?
Windows 7, a virtual machine.
There you go. Windows 7 and a virtual machine.
I think there's no, it's weird that there's no open source tax filing software.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it on paper.
Well, then it'd be, then it wouldn't be too secure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I rough draft mine initially, and then I give it to a CPA because I have businesses also, and you don't want to mess around with a business.
No, and that's like I pay my guy. I think I paid him $240 to do my taxes. But it's always worth it.
I
Yeah,
recommend
that's
to
totally
everybody.
right.
I recommend to everybody to do a dry run by yourself. You don't have to turn it in, but at least you'll know what you're entitled to deduct.
Yep.
And that's
right.
when I was young. That's one of the things I struggled with until I started doing my taxes myself. I'm like, wow, I could have wrote off this and this and this. Man, I'm losing money out of both rear pockets.
Yep, that's right.
I think we have someone who does our taxes because my parents both have their own businesses.
Oh, probably, absolutely. Vince, how does taxes run up down under there, Vince?
Well, first of all, our taxes are due in October, so I'm under no pressure at all at the moment. But yeah, I pay someone as well because of the businesses as well.
Yeah.
Much easier.
Yeah, I mean, you got so many things going back and forth, and it's probably going to get more complicated because I'm probably going to incorporate this other thing that I'm doing, and that's just going to be at another in the middle of it all. Oh, God. We'll see what happens. But yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump on into our topic for today. We're talking about this 737 MAX grinding. So, Quint, you were flying all over the place. Were you on a 737 MAX on your travels?
No, we were on a. I know a lot about I know a lot about planes because my mom does video producing for Delta.
Okay.
So I think we were on an Airbus A380 on the way there, and we came back on an MD-90.
Okay, so did you follow? Have you been following this situation with the 737s?
No, I haven't. I just heard about it. I have not. I know nothing about it.
All right, let's go ahead and start at the beginning of our list. Ben's always first. So Ben, thoughts on 737 MAX? Well, actually, first, can anybody summarize this, or do you want me to do it before we jump into individual points?
This is the thing where the airplanes are pitching up and stalling into a dive because they don't have the correct orientation, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So this is a brand new plane, like brand stinking new plane, right off the assembly line. In fact, Boeing hasn't even shipped them all yet. And so far in the last couple of months, there have been 2 crashes where every person on board has been killed. So 2 very high-profile plane crashes with this brand new, amazing plane, and we're going to get into why this thing is crashing. And boy, is it interesting.
There's got to be a lot more to that because I got a whole list of countries here that have banned this airplane from being used over their airspace.
Yep.
Hong Kong, Vietnam, New Zealand, the UK, China, European Union, and Australia.
And here in the United States, we were the last to ground it.
This BBS article here says the U.S. has refused to do so.
Yeah, well, as of yesterday, they did ground them.
Yeah, let's not forget that over 300 people have lost their lives at the moment. So
yeah,
that's important to remember.
All right, so let's go ahead, Ben. Initial thoughts and points from anything you've seen.
So when something like this happens, my first inclination is to blame the humans involved. Now, that's probably an unpopular opinion to go ahead and blame the pilot, but it was funny. This story sounds exactly like one I saw. It was on one of those TV shows, airline disasters or whatever. And if you go look up Air France 447, there's something very similar with that particular flight where the pilot kept putting pitch up controls. The airplane obeyed him and it stalled. Now, of course, that's not this plane. That's a completely different situation. But pilots do make mistakes sometimes, and new airplanes have teething problems as well. And if you want to see new airplanes with teething problems, go look at the McDonnell Douglas DC-10, which went on to have a whole slew of crashes and then put into cargo service and served well there for some reason.
Okay. All right, Dan.
Well, I can bring some statistics to the table. I was able to find out that there is 357 of these planes roughly in service, having most of them. Boeing has over 5,000 orders pending on this plane that they want filled.
Great. Airplanes falling from the sky.
737 or is it a 747?
730.
737 MAX.
Delta banned the 737s. They retired all of them, I think, not too long ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Brian, thoughts?
Well, I just found out about it today when I got your link, because I've been running around doing a bunch of other stuff. But, you know, they got to check the black boxes. They got to see what the data recorders say. They got to check the voice recorders. I know when I worked for the Army back in my engineering days, with the night vision goggles, every time there was a night crash, I had to study all the data to see if it was related to the night vision goggles or not. And, you know, every now and then it's a new piece of equipment or something adjunct to the actual flight. So they have a lot of information to sift through. At this point in time, it could be almost anything.
Absolutely.
I got a headline here. It says that Boeing plans to fix the 737 MAX jet with software updates.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. Quint, do you have anything else to add here that you didn't already add for this point?
Not really.
Okay. I know you chimed in earlier. So, Vince, early thoughts.
Yeah, I don't want to preempt anything you might want to say. Yeah, there's still a lot of information yet to come out. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, we'll see what else they have to say.
So, the way I understand this, and I could be wrong, but I looked into several different articles. Apparently, this plane shipped with one operating base. And then they did an update. And the update changed something that required the pilots to readjust. And the problem is the readjustment wasn't properly communicated to pilots. So people started with the plane, they knew how to work it, and over-the-air update changed how the software worked. And nobody knew about, well, not nobody, several pilots didn't get the proper training to continue using the plane properly. That raises this fascinating question that they're fixing this with software updates, as Dan alluded to. They're just changing the updates. Now, think of your cars. Dan, don't you also have a car that updates, or is that somebody else? That might be Joe.
Mine don't, but...
Yeah, I think that's somebody else. But we are moving into this world where we're trying to rely... Like, it went to the point where computer technology started as a help. Now it is the reliance. And software change caused these planes to start falling out of the sky because something changed and they didn't communicate it to the pilots.
They need new batteries.
That's it. That's it. So, Ben, did you see anything like that in your research?
No, I didn't dig as far into this particular aircraft as you had, but you know, reading the couple articles in the news reminded me of both of those two aircraft I mentioned earlier, both the Air France 447 and the McDonnell Douglas DC-10.
Yeah, and a lot of plane crashes occur because the pilots don't trust their instruments. And in this case, it seems as though the instruments seemed to have gone rogue, or they relied on this thing like people are relying on the Tesla's autopilot. Autopilot in a plane, and though in theory should work, but the reality is the pilot needs to watch and make some adjustments. And that's why they said there haven't been any U.S. issues, and why the United States didn't ground them right away is that the pilots here are better trained than you get in some areas, and so they could spot that and correct for it. But some pilots were just pushing the button and letting it go. And I think that that's what generated a lot of the issue.
I noticed...
Sorry.
This is kind of funny that I noticed that I'm reading an article from Business Insider about it, and Boeing stock is going up.
No, I don't. No, that's not the case. They've lost a heck ton of money.
That's what it says right here, is that Boeing stock is going up.
No, the last thing I read, they lost $25 billion on the stock exchange.
Let me have a look at...
You gotta realize
it was
something
the one
here,
from
Vince.
Business Insider.
Our news is not exactly great here.
Yeah, from 9 a.m. It had a high today of 9 a.m. at $378 US per share, and as of Right now, it's sitting at 373. So it's
this says 378, so this must be old
yeah.
then.
But let me look at the 5-day. Okay, yeah. So look at when this first happened, March 11th. It was trading at 422, and it just tanked that day down to 371. It went back up a little bit, but yeah, it is significantly lower than it was over the last couple days. 1 month. It's dropped 60 points. No, wait, 40, 56, 70 points in 1 month.
Can you go back 6 months? Because, I mean, this problem is only a problem because there's been 2 crashes. So if you go back to October last year...
Yeah, let me go ahead and pull that up for you guys. Watch it. Yeah. So here is the stock report from Boeing. My apologies, we're on Google, but it does show us decent stock stuff. So, all right. So there's November. Let me actually go year to date. So, of course, January 10... no, wait, that's year to date. My apologies. Let me go 1 year. All right. So here is around the October. Now, when was that? Was that early October, late October?
Ooh, not quite sure.
Okay, so early October, it had a probably 6-month high of 392. But then right at the end of October, October 29th, it tanked down to 335. And then it continued to really drop down as low as 294. Now, this was right when that market crash had occurred, right before Christmas. There was a big market crash. And then it shot way up. And then, of course, you can see here this last little bit. It did go down quite significantly. So looking at the 5 days, you can see, boom, hit a tank. It's not going back up right now. So, yeah, they did lose a lot. All right. Other commentary on that part there?
Well, this one here says President Trump ordered grounding of the Boeing 737 MAX. And it's listed as an updated article.
Yeah, I pulled one from New York Times here. And it doesn't have a lot of super useful information we didn't already all address. But like I said, pretty much any article here. So, of course, 2 of these in 6 months have gone down. And it does seem to be related to software. It does seem to be related to software changed.
Apparently, they're still building this thing because they have pending orders of 5,000 units plus.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you have a system like that, you know, it's not as easy to pull the plug on airplane manufacturing if you can fix it, as long as they can legitimately fix it, and that's the thing. So it raises an issue of training. It raises an issue of software. I don't think the plane is going to be forever done. I don't think we necessarily have to throw in the towel entirely. But it's just an interesting thing. And where I wanted to pivot the discussion into this seems to be related. So far, what I understand, it seems to be related to software changes and over-the-air updates. This is the exact model we're moving into in autonomous cars. And this is what raises a concern to me. Now, of course, people will come out and say, oh, but there's the safety studies there's so much data we have. No, we don't. If you look at a scientific study, looking at the number of autonomous cars versus cars driven by human drivers, we have an insignificant sample pool to draw any real conclusions. One study said is if autonomous cars were around, if only 10% of cars in New York City were hacked, it would actually cause the entire city to stand still. So that's why
I've learned that out west that they have Tesla has 4 or 5 semi-tractor trailers that are autonomous running around on the freeways.
Yeah, that scares the bejeebers out of me.
Yeah, me too.
With Tesla stuff, because they seem to drive at full speed and it's parked fire trucks.
Wasn't that a Stephen King movie, the possessed 18-wheeler?
Christine. Well, no. I think you're missing up. Christine was a possessed 18-wheeler, but there was also the old movie called Duel.
Maximum Overdrive.
That one.
Maximum Overdrive. I didn't see that one.
Who made who?
Who was that? Stephen King as well?
No, who made who is AC/DC song that went with that movie?
Okay, yeah. So pivoting into autonomous cars, the fact that these things are constantly updating themselves on the internet, and the fact that these things are perpetually on the internet, how much comfort does that give us as we proceed into our world? We'll start with Vince this time and move back the other way so that the guys at the front don't take all the answers. Vince, what's your thoughts on autonomous cars? Do you want to jump in these guys?
We've already seen numerous examples of these things going wrong. There was the cyclist who was killed. There was the one that crashed into the fire truck. There was a robot that was killed at CES as well. So I don't feel sorry for the robot, but it was killed nonetheless. It was beheaded, actually.
Hey man, that was a hostile robot. I mean, the Tesla was saving the day.
And so, yeah, I mean, how much trust do we put in these things with our lives without enough data that gets put into it? I mean, so many things we do is tested for safety, except AI. And did I hear that your government was also spending X amount of money on trying to progress AI in competition with China?
Yes, I covered that in a news article a few weeks back. And it's kind of done with an executive order, which scares the bejeebers out of me.
I mean, so we're shooting ahead blindly without.
Gotta beat China. That's it. Maybe slow it down a little.
Doesn't China already have like 5G and everything?
I don't know if they have 5G yet. I did see that they either are or are about to surpass every other country in AI. I didn't read the article, but I saw it. Quint, we're on to you. Thoughts on autonomous cars?
I don't like them. I honestly think they scare me a little bit because I feel like all the like when they first started to come out, all the articles we saw were about how they're going to make the roads safer.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be stupid human drivers that are looking at their phones.
And the coolest thing is the one company had the patent for like the glue that if a car would hit somebody, they'd stick to it instead of hit and slide off and get run over again. So you see this demon car running down the street with a lot of guys squirming like flypaper. You know. Now, also though, speaking from this angle to devil's advocate a little bit, because you're the only one here, I think, without a driver's license, is it a benefit that if an autonomous car system were put into place, you could travel somewhere a little bit more freely, not relying on getting rides and things? Would that be a benefit to you, or like, I'll wait for the ride?
What exactly did you say? Sorry.
Sure. So being, I think, the only one here without a driver's license, I think, do you take advantage of something knowing that you might have more freedom without having to wait for a ride or something, that, you could just hail a self-driving taxi and go? Is that something better? Is that something worse, particularly speaking from somebody your age?
I think that's something worse. The main reason is you're probably going to have an app to call that taxi. And since I ditched Google Play not too long ago, I won't be able to download that.
But Facebook.
And also, if just the other thing is that, what if just something like, how sort of like in the Waymo taxis, how anybody could just grab the steering wheel and go crazy in it? What if that happens? I think I'd actually rather wait for a taxi that has a driver in it, because I know that they would be driving, that it would not be powered by some computer. There
you go. Yep.
And then the other thing about self-driving cars, we've seen all their crashes. Wasn't the Tesla software like programmed to like go faster when there was an object in front of it or something?
And it still is.
But Tom, I probably will be in Georgia. You can get your learner's permit at 15.
All right.
I don't know what the law is up there.
So you'll be there.
Yeah.
You'll be there soon.
I'll be there
all right.
soon.
Well, I'm gonna stay off the roads in Atlanta then.
The Atlanta roads are pretty bad, though.
Yeah, they're bad anyway. All right. One more won't help.
Atlanta probably has the worst public transportation of all the big city, like the top 10 big cities. We only have our we have train that just runs like through one section of the city, and the rest is bus, and everyone gets in their cars. That's pretty much the only way you can.
That's
travel.
how it is here, Quint, too. It's the same way in Detroit.
We have a really good public transportation. Of course, we don't have trains, but our buses are pretty good. Brian,
we have our bus routes are good. It's just it doesn't really solve anything by keeping people off the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, thoughts on autonomous cars? Would you get in one? Would you not get in one?
I would not get in one. The term, which I believe is appropriate at this point in time, is I don't think they're ready for prime time yet. Maybe, in the future they might be, but right now, in my opinion, the technology just isn't there yet.
Most of us on this call, outside of Quint, I think, knows what a blue screen of death is, and the fact that one of those could happen.
Yes,
I'm sure you know, but did you have computer systems that you got them regularly? Yeah, I know.
Well, if I wrote, you can get one regularly if you throw a bunch of viruses into Windows 10.
This is true. All right, Dan, your thoughts.
You need to fire up Windows ME in a VM.
I don't think I have to go super deep into my negativity of this, but I think all of our answers so far are based around the bottom line of responsibility. When these things freak out and hurt people, who do we hurt that made the thing that hurt us? That's the whole underlying issues. We make these AI things with no responsibility whatsoever attached to them. At best, they get slapped in the hand or a heavy fine.
That is a good point. And actually, let's go ahead and take a whole panel point on that. So let's get Ben's final thoughts on autonomous cars, and then let's go back and hit that, because I love that topic. I didn't think of it. Go ahead, Ben. Final thoughts on autonomous cars.
I was going to go down a similar path that Dan did. My problem with autonomous cars isn't so much that they're self-driving, they have AI on them. It's who's responsible when it goes wrong. Is it the owner of the car, the manufacturer, the software engineer, the other drivers? How is this going to work with other human drivers on the road, with insurance and liability?
Yeah. Don't be surprised when the insurance companies mandate driverless cars as only option. Ooh, that's
and my feelings don't stop with just cars. I'm talking about AI, human-looking things, and everything else too. That's technology. Where do we stop the technology and be human?
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump down this. Like, I just watched iRobot again last night, right? So I was getting some stuff done. Watch iRobot, and that was kind of one of these fundamental things. When the robot goes crazy, who do we blame? That was one of those hinge things. Sonny kills the scientist to make it look like a suicide just to get Spooner to investigate the situation, because the scientist knew that Spooner would be the only guy who would spot what was going on. So, and the DA's like, hey, murder is defined as when a human kills another human. How do we hold technologies liable? Whether it be the Boston Dynamics dogs go rabid and kill someone, you get mauled by a robotic dog, or the car goes crazy and autonomous car goes crazy and drives full speed into a kid. Who do we blame? So Dan, will let you take the lead point and finish your thoughts on that, and then we'll kind of go through everyone else here.
If people are going to make these things and they put them on the street and they got bugs in them and everything else, and they don't even bother to actually put a time frame, like let's say 7 years of testing in a controlled environment, and these things kill people. I want to see some justice for that person that got killed. I really do. I want to see somebody go to the electric chair.
And I completely agree.
I feel that's negative.
Yeah, somebody has got to be completely morally responsible. So Vince writes relating to this: the OEM responsible to do a risk assessment and put appropriate systems in place to reduce risk to an acceptable level. That's okay. The question is, how are they held responsible when that doesn't get done? Or are they just too much in a mad rush to get it out to not even think about how to do that right? Or can they fudge the safety data? Ben, do you have anything else to add on this general topic of the morality, things like that?
I mean, as a general rule, I think the 3 laws of robotics are just fine. You just have to implement them. But as far as the liability stuff, Vince in chat is absolutely correct. The OEM is responsible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You do have, if you go start your car in the morning and the thing detonates and there's nothing of you left, then the proper answer is to sue the guy that made the car. Yeah. And I don't see that any different now. So if your Tesla goes off,
suing is one thing, criminal law is another.
Well, that's a deeper.
It's
a bit deep. Yeah. No, I do.
And you have shareholders and stockholders that are clamoring for profits out of these things that are just as guilty because they're skipping steps and making the thing correctly.
Well, that's exactly what happened in the Uber crash. So, and this is exactly this point that you're making. You two are both making. The Uber crash. The ruling just came out this week. You know what they found out? That Uber is not liable for the death that caused their self-driving car, but they held the driver liable. Now, who do you hold liable when there is no safety driver? Is Uber going to be liable? I would like to see somebody if we're driving down the road and I actually run you over, I could feasibly go to jail for second-degree manslaughter. Is the CEO of the company going to go to jail? What's that again?
So does this car have a person in it or not that's driving it?
The Uber car that killed somebody in Mesa, Arizona, had a safety driver. What the courts finally
using
determined,
him for an scapegoat.
Correct. Now, who is liable when there is none? Because here's the thing. If every time one of those cars goes out of control and kills somebody, we need to see an actual executive in the company on the hook for manslaughter. Maybe that'll cause them to put the brakes on. Now, I want to go back to something Ben said, though, with the 3 laws. If you're not familiar with what he's talking about, these are the 3 laws from iRobot. A robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. 2, a robot must obey orders given it by a human except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And number 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws. The problem, though, with the 3 laws is that the entire point of the movie is that if the 3 laws are brought to final conclusion, it means enslavement of the human race to the hands of the robots. That's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Brian, thoughts on liabilities and things on autonomous vehicles?
Well, we definitely have to do something that we haven't done in a long time, because for those of you that are as old as I am, remember way back there was a type of an automobile called a Ford Pinto. And the Ford Pinto,
I had 4 of them.
Yep, the Ford Pinto was notorious that if you got hit in the rear end, it would explode because the gas tank was badly engineered and put in a bad place. Well, Ford Motor Company kind of knew about that, but when they did their so-called risk assessment, they figured if they settled the cases, it was cheaper to settle than to fix the problem. So they continued to make cars they knew would explode if they got hit in the back.
Yep.
They eventually made a crash pan to put in around the gas tanks.
Right, but that came much later. That came when public opinion got to be so great that they couldn't ignore it anymore.
Because I actually had bought 4 of them cars, and I found them out in people's... I live in farm country area back then. And you'd see these things sitting around. You could have one for free to $50 all day long.
Yeah, no one wants to drive around in an explosive car.
Now it's the same thing with the autonomous cars, in that if the car goes berserk and kills somebody, it's similar to if a car blows up and kills somebody. The point is, if the company knows it's going to blow up, or if the company knows the software is going to go berserk and it's going to hit people or run into walls or whatever, somebody in the company, like Tom was saying, you got to make it a criminal responsibility and not just a civil. Because if it's just a civil liability, they'll settle. And when these companies are making, you know, millions of dollars, they could pay the fine and not bat an eye. But if they have to sit in the jail cell, they're going to think twice, is the money worth it?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so if we were to implement that type of thing, then it would probably help. Quint, what's your thoughts on this? Autonomous vehicles. Who takes responsibility when it goes crazy and kills someone?
I really do think that it should be either someone from the department that made this that was responsible for the specific issue, or the CEO. It really just depends on what the problem is.
Yeah. I think ultimately it's got to be an executive member. And the reason is, if it's not an executive member, a CEO, a CFO, a CTO, if it's not an executive guy, they're just going to throw the little engineer under the bus.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part.
And the thing is they'll since all it is fines right now. It will, like Brian was saying, it will actually teach them a lesson that they should know what, like, they should actually fix these issues. But the thing is there's a lot of stuff like that's like the CEO of Comcast should have gone to jail when they cut all those lines. You remember that? When they cut all those lines in that place in Texas?
He should have been, the actual CEO should have been on trial for vandalism. Yeah. Now, maybe he would be acquitted, but he should still have to face a trial for vandalism, because he is the one ultimately in charge. And this was something that dates back. In I Am Not Amused, I actually talk about some of the history about the constitutional rights for companies, because way back a long time ago, actually it was the famous Fitzgerald fight in 1898, I think it was, in Carson City, that actually prompted the initial censorship laws on media entertainment, right? So in that fight, what happened is Nevada was the only state that allowed gambling, so that's where they had that fight, because it's a big gambling thing. But right in that same year, Thomas Edison had produced the video camera, and so they filmed the fight. The question now becomes, are you allowed to show that film somewhere? And that is what prompted some initial censorship laws in the country. And then companies would come back and sue on free speech rights. And back in that time, courts came back and said, no, a corporation does not have free speech. Constitutional rights are granted to citizens, not companies. And the problem we have right now is that the company can get away with whatever they want because there's no one central person to take responsibility. And in reality, every executive should be jointly and severally liable for all errors in the country, whether it be a criminal offense or a civil offense. All executives in any corporation needs to be held jointly and severally liable, because it keeps accountability to themselves, accountability to the company, and accountability to the government. If you want the constitutional rights, you have to take the constitutional responsibilities with it.
I think there's just simply too much cash floating around to keep these things quiet or under wraps or under control for anything to really come of it on the criminal side.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Vince, you haven't chimed in yet on this, liability.
Isn't this a situation where legislation lags far behind the progress in technology?
Yeah.
And there needs to be some way of changing that so that things can be just more streamlined in the legislative arena. But I take your point.
Over here, legislation often gets paid by kickbacks not to do anything.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, this is a perfect example of one of your favorite topics, Tom, with corporate responsibility and the whole problem of limited liability with companies. And I agree with everything that's been said. I mean, if an executive was to be made personally responsible, you would definitely see a lot less mistakes. I mean, this doesn't just apply to autonomous cars; it applies to a whole lot of other things that go on in the corporate world. Because at the moment, many of them, they don't say it publicly, but many of them see these fines, see these lawsuits as just a cost of doing business. Mm-hmm. Yep. And they'll write it off.
And they get it back on their taxes.
Exactly.
Okay, this is a good point here. Jan Tapper says, "What about the shareholders pushing for more profits?" Well, I think that will take care of itself because here's the thing about we are not in a capitalist society. We are in a corporatocracy. A capitalism carries with it, if you actually read the foundations of what capitalism is, it requires with it a root of morality. Which is far missing in this country, unfortunately. And as you have this root of morality, morality will never let profits go above human responsibility. And that's what you need. So the CTO, etc., they have to push back with the shareholders and say, we can't go beyond this boundary because of the ethics involved. And this is a fascinating thing. I took my first ethics classes in grad school back before ethics classes were required in undergrad. Now everyone's like, we need ethics. Well, again, I am not amused. This was a very well-researched book. There is some statements in there when the USC Film School ground was broke. George Lucas was there. There were like 4 or 5 really popular directors then and even still to this day. I think Spielberg might have been there as well. And Lucas made the point, he said, we have to have ethics classes because film has so much potential to impact us that we've got to have ethics. Now, Chip Ingram, who's a pastor, he was actually in Atlanta, Georgia for a while. In fact, I think he's still in Atlanta, actually, Quint. Chip Ingram did a sermon series a long time back where he started out looking at morality and ethics, and then he tackled a lot of different issues, abortion and sexuality and things like this. And in that, he talks about everyone agrees we need ethics, but nobody agrees on whose ethics we need. Everyone says we need ethics, but how does a university, which has trumpeted on there is no absolute truth, possibly tell you what ethics is? Because ethics demands morality. And can you possibly have morality without it? So it's like, what's going on? It's kind of crazy stuff. So that's kind of where I sit with that. We have to push back and have a degree of morality in what we do, and that's how it gets balanced. One company gets out of line, push it back.
Unfortunately, greed is a very powerful motivator.
Unfortunately, yeah. And it doesn't have much ethics. What is the ethics of greed? All right. So we started with the 737 MAX grounding, went over into the autonomous cars and responsibility. So it kind of ties back into this plane. If it's going to be ultimately investigated that the company pushed a software update that the pilots did not know how to deal with, who is ultimately liable for those 300 lives? Is it the pilot? Because, in the one plane, they're trying to throw the co-pilot under there. Oh, the co-pilot only had 100 hours of flight.
So there was a link that I threw into the Hangouts a bit earlier. It's actually about it's actually about this MCAS system that seems to be causing the problem. And on the second paragraph of that page, it actually says when flying in manual mode, the MCAS uses data from the angle of attack sensor to push the nose of the plane down. So this software is actually overriding manual control as well. So it seems pretty clear who's to blame.
So basically you're saying that the software is actually
overriding manual control.
Replacing human control.
Mm-hmm.
Wowzers. Yeah, so I guess I was right on what my thought is. All right, so
that falls back on Boeing.
All right, so now if they pushed a software update that caused this to occur, now who at Boeing is going to be on the hook for 300 cases of second-degree involuntary manslaughter?
You'd need an investigation, a fair one for that.
Yep, and that is very unfortunate. So this is the world where we're moving into. We have to ask these questions, and we have to ask these questions and create the policies. I'm not saying we have to completely ban all this stuff, but somebody has got to be liable, or else it will become absolute anarchy in the marketplace. And we don't need anarchy in the marketplace. Unfortunately, we already have too much anarchy out there, but That's kind of the thoughts there. So we're coming up on an hour, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up soon. So, Ben, what's your final thoughts on all this?
Well, now we can't fly on 737 Maxes.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they'll get that airplane sorted out. Like all the other ones they eventually fix. And like you mentioned earlier, that's such it's such a pain to start building a new airframe from nothing that they're not gonna scrap that whole lot, regardless of what happens, criminally or investigatively. So, and wait for all the evidence to come out, because
let's sell it to our enemies. Okay.
Yes, we could do that.
Go ahead, continue.
Oh, and then the growing number of automatically updating autonomous stuff in the world is only going to go up, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and
it's better to test it, get it out there, test it, and then keep it off the internet.
Right,
way better solution.
And make the updates opt-in.
Yeah.
Because even if this airplane, even if these 737s are having this problem due to updates, if the pilots are trained on one version of a piece of software, and an update rolls out that they didn't know about, that wasn't necessarily even validated by the airline they work for or the maintenance crews involved, and they don't know how to deal with it, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and it becomes a really big problem when 1,000 tons of steel comes falling out of the sky.
I think it's aluminum, but yes.
Well,
aluminum.
Okay, yes, it is aluminum. Okay, when it's 1,000 tons, it doesn't matter what it is.
No. No, if it breaks up over something important, things are going to get real.
And not to mention the people on the ground that get killed, or a building that gets demolished with people that are in it. There's all kinds of sidewinders, and they want to build 5,000 more of these things without,
Yay! So exciting. Dan, we're on you. What's your final thoughts on all this?
First of all, I think that they really need to ground all these planes and find out in the software where the bug is. They need to go to that department that created the software, find out who is in charge of that software and how this happened. Because if you go higher up into the CEO or shareholders, they're not going to know nothing about it, because, yeah, they're clamoring to get the job finished, but they don't know nothing about writing software or that department. So that area where the software is being developed is where you're going to find the culprit of it all. I myself, I work on machinery. I have to go to particular customers' facilities and go through an entire piece of machinery and go through a checklist and certify that it is safe to use on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they have to do the same with the planes. How this slipped through the cracks, I'll never know. And it'll take an investigation to figure it out.
Yep. So Mike W. says the software update was tied to the MAX model engine change and was heavily tested and certified prior to update into service. Well, apparently it wasn't that heavily tested. I think that you're right in that it was properly tested, but the question is, as somebody said earlier, were people trained on the differences? And that's kind of part of it. Brian, final thoughts.
Okay, one final thought. First of all, I agree with everything everybody else said, but one thing that ought to be automatically done in any of these AI, smart operated, whatever you're talking about, and Tom, you mentioned this sometimes when you were talking about mobile phones, is there's got to be a way to turn the thing off. There's got to be like a hardware kill switch or something where you return the plane or the car or whatever it is to manual control, and the computers are offline, so the computers cannot override manual control, so that you have a human in full control of everything. That's got to be an option. If we fully turn everything over to an AI without planning for a way to turn the thing off, we're looking for, Skynet to come online.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately where we're at, because we really have done, as we talked about earlier in the show, we really are at this point where we moved from the point of computers are an aid to now computers are in control, and that's scary.
Right.
I have something to add.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, now on an airplane that large, okay, there's got to be some computers that still have to run even if the thing goes into manual operating mode, because I'm sure they don't use mechanical linkage to the rudder and all that other stuff anymore. I think that's all, somehow electronically controlled.
Right.
By the same token that our cars no longer have the steering wheel attached to the front wheels, it's electronic steering. And the gas pedal is electronically connected to the engine. No more cables or linkage. So you still have, no matter what you do, there's some kind of electronic computerized things going on so you can operate the machine.
Right. You just don't hook that up to the AI part.
Well, there's a fine line between where that gets overlapped, and...
Yeah. And that's got to be the job of someone in the company to sort out where that line goes so that the manual controls still work electronically, but the computer can't override what the manual person is trying to do.
There are articles where cars have run away on people because of this particular thing, and steering has stopped working and locked up or not worked. That have came out since they've had that implemented in automobiles.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's not limited to electronics. That can be mechanical, too. That was the Toyota accelerator problem from a decade ago.
Yeah, they had problems with gear shifters that were mechanical that popped out of park.
Nice. Quentin,
I just
final
wanted to
thoughts?
point out, moving away from even mechanically attached controls.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem, I think. Quint, thoughts?
I honestly think it would just be wise for Boeing to stop shipping these planes until they resolve what the issue is. You know how they have all those, how many orders was it?
That's
5,000 plus, but I don't think with all the countries that have grounded them that order is going to get filled.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
I'm not saying they need to completely kill it,
Stop
but
shipping them until they do a full investigation.
yeah. I would
Then
say...
they still have to blame whatever person who did that.
I'd say don't ship any more of them at all until the investigations are complete into both of the crashes and know exactly what happened. So... Vince, final thoughts?
I was just thinking this is just another example of how forced updates are bad.
Yes.
But as long as the planes don't do a forced reboot.
Hey, that's a good time to reboot. Run on Windows 10. Your system will now reboot. Your airplane will come back online in 10 more hours. Oh, God. Yeah.
The plane becomes a glider at best.
Oh boy. Yeah, we
Well,
are.
that's why the space shuttle had two computer systems that were totally independent. They could hand either one control if one messed up.
Yeah, and maybe and I'm sure maybe somebody in here knows more about the airplanes. Maybe they already do that, but that's kind of the case. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. Just an FYI, guys. Some things I mentioned earlier before the show started. I will be doing another live stream in about 1 hour. Over on my other channel, so I'm going to drop that right down there in the comments. We're going to be talking about this Ohio student who was suspended for posting Bible verses around her school. Also, for my new book, I Am Not Amused. This is a Christian book. It may not be this target audience for sure, but for those of you who are interested, I have 2 giveaways going. First one is from Goodreads. If you are on Goodreads, go ahead and connect with me over there. I'll be giving away 100 copies of that. There are 36 people requesting it. It just went live last night. And the giveaway will end March 31st. So there are 100 Kindle giveaways. And then I also have 2 print books coming. Let's see. And these are from Amazon. This one ends March 17th. There will be 2 paperback books given away, and you guys can take a look over there. Amazon one, you have to have an Amazon account in the United States. Goodreads, I think it also has to be United States, but I'm not sure all the other requirements on that. So, thanks for coming along, guys. And once again, we do now have some social accounts, so you can look me up on any of the social accounts that just jumped up on the screen there. And you can connect over there and make sure you're getting notifications if you want notifications. So thanks for coming along, guys, and hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.